every professional, one way or the other, to have a bit of idea about what project management is. And so without wasting much time, we'll zoom into what we have for today. So we'll be starting with today's topic. Yeah, I'm turning on my camera so that you guys can actually see who is actually speaking to you today. So yeah, this is me. And so by the time we are done with today's webinar, the professionals who are here today would actually understand what a project is. Okay, so by the time we are done, you get to understand what a project is, what is project management, what are the project processes that usually people use whenever they embark on a project, what is a project lifecycle, what is project management methodology, what are some of the methodologies or like the frameworks people use to actually perform some of the attacks. And out of that, I chose two very popular frameworks, methodologies that are being used widely across the world, which is Waterfall and Agile. And I think the last one, which will be a bonus, is who is a project manager, which is very important for us to know who a project manager is, and certain things that will help us identify a project manager. Okay, so brace yourself. Today there will be so much information. If there's any parts you don't understand, there will be a Q&A session. You'll be able to ask your questions and we'll be able to clarify it for you. Okay, so just enjoy the session. And when we get to the Q&A, we can clear all your issues and your doubts, okay, and answer all questions for you. Okay, so yeah, we'll move into today's topic. So we'll start with this and ask ourselves the question, who is a project manager? Okay, and what is a project? We'll start with the question, what is a project? Okay, and from what we can see, project is a temporary endeavor or activity undertaken to create a product, service, outcome, or a result to achieve a specific business goal. So in simple put, okay, I would say project is an activity. And one thing that you can also see here is temporal, which I've highlighted. Okay, so with project being an activity, it is also a temporal activity that people embark on. Okay, so projects are temporal. And one thing that makes projects is they create a unique outcome or a unique product, a unique value, a unique result based on the business goal, based on the business need, based on the business values. Okay, so these are the reasons why people embark on a project, because they've seen maybe a value they want to create for people. Maybe they've seen something that is a business need to society, to a group of people. And so they embark on a project. Okay, so that is why I have the business goal being highlighted. Okay, so I think the key things you need to understand from a project is it's a temporal activity and it creates a unique product. So based on that, I want to ask a question. Okay, so listen to what how we just defined projects. Okay, would you term, like, let's say Apple decides to create more, they've actually gone through the process of creating the iPhone 16. Okay, they've actually produced or gone through the whole process of creating iPhone 16. And let's say there's a mass shortage of the iPhone 16 and there's a high demand of it. And people are asking that we create, they're asking for the new iPhone to be produced. Would that be called a project, or the creation of the new iPhone be called a project? From this definition, we would say that is not a project, okay? The reason being, the whole process of creating the iPhone 16 was the project they embarked on. But when they have to create or produce the same thing over and over, it is not a project. We will term it maybe as a production or manufacturing, okay? Because project creates a unique value, and that is what we need to understand, okay? And project also is temporal. That means when we say we are constructing a road, okay, from Accra to Kumasi, we have to set a timeline that in 2 years' time, we need to complete that road. Because it doesn't become a project when you have to do it continuously without end, then it becomes a routine. Like let's say when you enter the bank, the security man opens the door for you every day. That is a routine the security man is taking. Okay. But when you come into the same bank, and let's say the marketing team sees a niche, and they now want to create a marketing campaign to sell certain products to people, they will embark on a project to be able to identify the niche or the people they need to advertise the product to, so that they can sell that product to. Okay, so in a bank, the security man opening the door every day is the security man opening the door every day is a routine, not a project. Okay, so the security man cannot say I'm embarking on a project to open doors every day, because there's no end to that process. Every day he will open the door. The only time he stops is when he leaves the bank. Okay, and like the cashiers, every day they have to stamp and process people's money. It is not a project they're embarking on. It's a routine that they do, or like an activity they perform in the bank that has no end. Until the bank closes, that activity will go on and on. So a project is a temporary activity, okay, that creates a unique value. And you can see at the bank, they are not, aside, even though they are sending money into your account, they are not creating some unique value, which is like different from what they did for the next person. It's the same thing that repeats itself. So project, we need to understand, is a temporary activity, creates a unique value to achieve a certain business goal or a business need. Okay, so we'll move on from what a project is. So what are some of the characteristics of a project? Okay, so let's look at it. It's a set of distinct activities. I mentioned that earlier. It's a set of distinct activities. So there are so many things that come together to make up a project. Okay, so let's say we are constructing a road. They have to now measure the distance of the road. So the surveyors will actually take the measurement. Now the contractors will now take the caterpillar to level the road before they start laying gravels and now putting the tar and all of that on the road. Those things are distinct activities, and they all come together to make the project or the road construction project a project. Okay, so when we say distinct activities, that is what we mean. When we have the software, we have the front-end engineers actually creating the front-end, the visual part, and the back-end actually creating the operational side. Okay, so that is the set of activities that come together to form a project. Another thing we see on a project is time-bound. Okay, when I say time-bound, project has a beginning and has an end. Let's say, for instance, when the COVID-19 pandemic actually hit the whole world, and your company is a big pharma company, you have to produce some drugs to help the vaccines, okay, to help control the spread of COVID-19. And your company decides to take 3 years to create one single vaccine. And you saw how COVID-19 came. In a span of 2 years, it was done. So within that 3 years, if you choose to create your vaccine, though you've created a value, it does not become of use to the people you created the project for or their value. You understand? So project is time-bound. If you don't put time on your project, then it becomes a routine. It becomes repetitive, okay? So it's very time-bound, very sensitive, and should have a deadline. Another thing you need to know about project is it creates a unique service, product, solution, or outcome. Okay, so whenever you are creating a project, look at the end result. Is it going to create something useful or something unique? Okay, that is what a project is. So there, people will ask, so if I'm creating, like, let's say an iPhone 14, which has been created by Apple, I create my own company and create something similar. If you create your company and you create something similar to what Apple has done, it is not the same product. It will go by the name of your company. Even if you choose to name it as Apple and you don't get sued by Apple, you find certain technology being different from what Apple and the processes you guys engage on being different from the way Apple actually addressed or used in their project. So it is unique to your company. Okay, so every project creates a unique value, a unique outcome or solution. We move on. The project should have a scope or an objective. Okay, so when we talk of scope, for instance, when we decide to construct a road, one of the things you will ask is, as a contractor, will be, so from where to where? Is it from Accra to Kumasi or from Accra to Takoradi. You understand? Because you need to know where the project is going to end. If not, then you keep doing and you will not get to an expected end. So you need to know the scope. So that when we are talking of scope and objective, you know that, okay, we need a feeder road. Okay, that is the objective. We want to have a feeder road that will contain people. And it's going to move from where? Accra to Kumasi. That is the scope. You understand? So that is another characteristics of a project. Another thing we should look at is projects has a team and stakeholders. Okay, so we don't do project in isolation as an organization. Okay, unless it's your own personal goal or objective you want to achieve. That is where you will be your project team and your own stakeholder on that project. Okay, but aside that, if you are working in a team or in an organization, one of the things that will happen is the project you are embarking on will be worked on by a team and will have certain stakeholders. And when we talk of stakeholders, there are classes of stakeholders, which I think I'll mention it as time goes on. So these are like the characteristics of a project. We move on. This is a story I kind of generated for us to actually make this session more practical. Okay, so like this story time, there's a village, okay, which is facing water crisis or water shortage, okay, and as a result, you as a citizen or as an indigene of that land, you decided to meet the local leaders to propose a clean water system. And what you discussed, you decided to do boreholes and filtering system. In communication or in a meeting, 2 months is agreed on to review the cost for materials and equipment and to complete the project. You recommend high quality filtering system for safety despite higher expenses. Okay, risks include equipment delay, maintenance issues, requiring skilled technicians. Okay, proper coordination. With proper coordination, the project will be completed on time and within budget. Okay, so I have highlighted certain things in this story. This is to show you certain that project also has certain components. Okay, and based on this, you can see from this that I've identified certain things that are needed or that are like very common when you are embarking on a project. The first thing you can see over here is a problem. Okay, project stems out of either a problem, one, or a business need. When I say a business need, like your company, you realize that people keep coming to office late. So you guys embark on a project where you can record the time where people come to office, okay? So that is the business need, to create maybe a system that will record the time for people. So based on that, there's a business need. Or you want to create a value, okay? Like this particular story, they wanted to create a value for the villagers where they can have adequate water. Okay, so a problem or a project is stemmed out of a problem or a business need or a value that you want to create. Okay, and one other thing you can see here is stakeholders. Okay, and with stakeholders, there are two classes of stakeholders. Okay, we have key stakeholders and other stakeholders. Okay, even with the other stakeholders, we have the direct stakeholders and even indirect stakeholders. I'll shed more light on that. Okay, so as you read the story, you realize that they want to focus on installing boreholes and filtering units. That is the main scope. They don't want to do anything beyond that. Anything you do about boreholes and filtering units is an overkill to the project. So whenever you're embarking on a project, the scope is very important. And you can see over here that the scope is, let me just take the pen and highlight it. The scope of the project is installing boreholes and filtering units.
Sir, it seems some people are in the waiting room. It seems some people can join directly and others cannot. I don't know how it's working. Can you please check?
Okay. Let me quickly check the participants. Okay. I think everybody's okay. Everybody's in at the moment.
Okay.
So you can see over here that the scope is to install boreholes and filtering units. Anything beyond boreholes and filtering units, it's an overkill for the project. Okay, so you need to understand the scope. If not, somebody will come and say that you guys promised to connect the boreholes directly to our homes, which was not part of the scope. That can be a different project, or you can assign it to a different company. And that is why you see certain projects that go on in our country or even on the continent or on a global scale being done by different corporations. Okay, so one corporation will be in charge of let's say installing the boreholes. Another corporation will be in charge of the filtering unit. Another corporation will be in charge of, like, let's say, connecting it directly to people's home. And so you need to understand the scope of your project, okay, as a project manager. Okay, and one thing that is always found in a project is communication. That is this aspect where people go into meetings, we discuss. It is always part of a project. Another aspect of a project is schedule. Okay, and we can see it over here that within that project, we seek to complete it within 2 months. Why? Because the people of the village have water shortage, and if we prolong like this project, that means within that 2 months, people will be without water. Even beyond that 2 months, people will be without water if this project is not completed. And that is why it's very necessary for you to have a schedule to your project. Okay. Another thing is every project has a cost or a budget assigned to it. So we can talk of a budget assigned to every project. It has a cost. There's no free project. Even if it's free, the people who are actually performing the project will incur some debt or will use some resources that they actually acquired with money. Okay, so project always has a cost or a budget attached to it. You can also see that there's a procurement aspect of it. Why? When they said they wanted to use filtering units, with this filtering unit, I don't think the local leaders actually produce it. And even if they produce it, they have to procure certain parts of it before they can use it. So procurement is also part of a project. And when you are embarking on a project, people actually seek for quality, okay? And that is where quality comes in. And over here, they want high quality filtering units. They don't want a filtering unit that will get spoiled and now we have to come and replace it over and over. For instance, like when you are going to buy a phone, okay? The reason why people will choose maybe a Samsung, okay, over a brand that you don't know would be because you know Samsung has a high quality product. They actually took their time to embark on that project, did high quality product to give to the people, okay? So quality is also a factor when it comes to projects. That is why when you see some of the roads being constructed in our country or even beyond, you see that there's a difference. You see that this road is high quality, this road is of a different quality. You understand? So quality is also very important. And all of these things are being affected or by some of these things, by the time, by the cost, you understand, and some of the risks involved. And you can see over here that they identified some risk, and the risk they identified was delays. You understand? So when it comes to project, there's always, no matter how good you are, no matter how best of a project manager you are, you should always calculate risk, leave room for risk. For instance, when we were building the Amasaman Road, I heard in the news once that they had to halt the whole project for a month or two for the indigents to actually pacify their gods because the contractors were actually doing something that was disturbing their gods. This was a risk they didn't actually identify. That, there could be a need for us to seek the community leaders. Maybe the government has given us the go ahead, but the community leaders, did we go and seek their approval? That was one thing they didn't consider. And it posed as a risk later on. And they had to halt the whole project for 2 months. You understand? And even now, I even hear they are even in court for some of these things, and the project is on hold. And so some of these things are risks that you need to anticipate. Every project comes with a risk, and you need to anticipate those risks before they come knocking at your door and you say, we didn't prepare for it. So as a project manager or anyone who's aspiring to be a project manager, you need to actually anticipate risk in every project. And over here, you can see one aspect, which is not really an activity, but this is the part where they put everything together. So for instance, when you're building a house, the contractors will bring masons who will put the blocks, who will dig the hole, and electrician will come, plumber will come, now the roofing company will come. You understand? So putting all of that together, now you have your home. But your home went through a process of project to actually get it completed. So these are like the components of a project. And I've outlined them here, that you can see that the components of a project, you need to define what the project is, okay? So let's say, for instance, you want to build a house. That is your project. The scope is, I want a 10-bedroom house. So first of all, you need to acquire the land where you'll be building this 10-bedroom house. Oh, and I need a swimming pool in my house. I forgot to say. You understand? So that is the scope of my project, 10-bedroom with a pool. And the stakeholders will be, let's say, the chiefs or the people of that land. Also, I am a stakeholder. I am the key stakeholder or the contracting organization. I'm the one going to contract. So that would be the landowner. That would be you. You have the contractors. Okay. You have the contractors and a lot more. Okay. For instance, let's say you decide to build your house and you decide to dig a very high building. That means they have to dig a very deeper foundation. They have to use maybe certain equipment. Maybe there are rocks in that area. So maybe you need to blast those rocks. The people surrounding you are all stakeholders because maybe the blast will affect them. And so when you go to the mining companies or the mining areas, you find that even the villagers have some say in the project that is going on. Because when they have to do certain activities, they need to consider, they have to go and do a whole publicity telling them we're about to engage on an activity, we will bring hazard, so don't come to this area within this period. Those are stakeholders. Resources, when you're about to build my house, you need cement, you need water, you need a whole lot, okay? So these are some of the resources you need. And you just don't need water. These are material resources, okay? There's also the human resource. That is the contractor. You need a contractor. Even though he's a stakeholder, he's part of the human resource. So with resources, we have the human resource. We have the plumbers. You have the electricians. Those people fall under the human resource, even though they are also stakeholders, okay? So it's very important to know some of these things. And communication. This is where you actually communicate like the need. This is where, if I am the one contracting the organization, I meet them, I tell them I want to build a 10-bedroom house. I want 5 bedrooms in the east wing, and I want another 5 in the west wing. And I want my swimming pool to be this dimension that will cut across from the east wing to the west wing. And, that is the communication. We go into meetings, several meetings, giving them the dimensions and all, and we agree on it. Okay, so communication, meetings are very important when it comes to projects, okay? Meetings are very important when it comes to projects. So let's move on. Let's just move on. The next thing you can see as a component is, on the components of a project is schedule. There is time. For instance, I want you to build a house for me. I come to your company and I'm in the US. I want to relocate to Ghana or to Africa in the next year. And so by September, I'll be in Ghana. So I'll tell you, I'll be home by September. September, I'll be home. So definitely the schedule will be for you to complete the project before September or on September. I don't want to come to Ghana and my house is like, oh, boss, we couldn't finish your house and the roofing people traveled. You see, so every project, there's a deadline or it's time sensitive. Okay, so time is very important. So by September, my building should be done and I should have a complete home to have my future wife and kids living in them or living in it. Okay, so it's very important to identify the timeline as a project manager. Then we come to the cost. One thing that always makes project delay sometimes is money, the cost. Someone would, so I'll tell you, I want you to build that 10-bedroom house for me. I'm going to give you $50,000 or $500,000 for this house, and you go like, oh, $500,000 with a pool, we would have to make it maybe $700,000. And I tell you, no, that's all the money I have. I have only $500,000, and that means you guys would have to now compromise on certain things, and that is where project becomes a bit tricky, or you need to study project management. Or else you would come and people, your building, they built an inferior building because you give them a straight budget that it is only 500,000 I want. Okay, so as a project manager, you need to be very frank with the contracting organization that maybe 500,000 is not enough. Okay, then you move on to procurement. There are certain items we need to procure to make this project successful, and that is very necessary. The quality of the project is also very important, and I made mention of risk. This is also very important. So keep in mind all of these components of a project as a project or an upcoming project manager, or who is anyone who is a project manager. You need to know all of these. These are things that will appear every day when someone calls your company or your organization for a project. These are elements, and this sets the basis for you to ask questions. Okay, so note these things down. We'll move on to what is project management. Now that we know what a project is and components of a project, now the question is, what is project management? The reason why we are here today, simple put, is an act and science of managing projects. Reason why I say, reason why they have it as act and science. I'm not the one who actually brought this definition, but it's a standard definition, and there are more definitions to it. But like the very simplest way you can define a project is act and science of managing a project. I can explain it in a way that it's an act because it's a various ideologies coming together, designs, various techniques. Then it's a science because there are certain methodologies involved in getting the project done. When you speak to scientists, they always follow some methodologies or they follow some due standards to get things done. And that is how projects is. You cannot do away with certain things when you're embarking on a project. So it's very important to understand that it's an act and it's also a science combined. Okay, so what is project management again? It is planning, coordinating, executing, facilitating, integrating, whilst controlling the work to achieve the project objective or goals. These are all English, and these are things that you'll be doing every day as a project manager. You'll be planning, coordinating, you'll be executing with the team, you'll be facilitating. You do all of these things to achieve a project objective. So that is project management. The next thing we look at is what is project life cycle? Because project has a beginning and has an end, it goes through a life cycle, it metamorphosizes like a butterfly. It goes from like a worm, I say a worm. So it goes from the canker to the butterfly. It changes. Okay, it goes through a series of stages before it becomes what it is. Okay, so that is what a project life cycle is. It's the different stages a project goes through, start to finish. You need to understand this, that every project goes through stages. And these are the stages. There are 4 main stages, okay? Also, in my studies, I've come to understand that this is not a stage, okay? Monitoring and controlling is not a stage, but it's an activity that is taken within these 4 stages. So within the initiation stage, it's you do some monitoring and controlling over there within the planning, execution, and the closure stage. All of these things are being done through the project life cycle. You can see in this diagram that project goes through an initiation stage. That is where I feel like that is where I know I want to build a house. I call I meet with the contracting company. I tell them I want to build a house. I need a 10-bedroom house. I have a very big family, and I need to build a 10-bedroom house. And we talk of all the ideas. That is the initiation stage. Then now we go into planning. Then we tell you, oh, for a 10-bedroom house, it will cost you this amount. You will need this product. You will need this and that. You will need us to have a quantity surveyor. You need us to have this and that. Then we go into it. Then after we plan all of those things and acquire all the resources, then we start implementing the project. That is the execution stage. Then after we are done, okay, we hand over the keys to the house. So you come and inspect and now hand over the keys to the house owner. Okay. And within these stages, okay, or within this stage, there will be an element of monitoring. So that is where you say, oh, my house, I said I wanted a 10-bedroom, but my scope has changed. So tell the architect to make it a 15-bedroom house. Okay, because I feel like I need to bring my extended family into the house. So make it a 15-bedroom house. Then we draw the plan again, then we go through. So you do a whole lot of monitoring and controlling within these life cycle, okay? And so I've defined these life cycles over here. So you can see that in the initiation stage, we have the stage of ideation. That is where the idea is being conceived, and we define it. So I tell you, it's a 10-bedroom house. That is what I want. That is all I want. And also I tell you if it is feasible. So let's say you want to, like, you're a big farmer, and now you started not so long, and you want to build a COVID vaccine. Now that the pandemic is over, building working on a COVID vaccine would not be of greater, will not generate revenue to you. So I would advise you as a project manager, don't venture into that project or into that activity. Maybe if you are doing a research, you've identified a new virus and you're about to work on, then we'll say, oh, that's feasible. Let's work on it. So that is in the initiation stage. That is where we see all of these things. We have the idea, we define it, and we tell you, oh, this is very feasible. Okay, it's doable. The idea you have is very viable. Okay, then we go into the planning stage. That is where we tell you, okay, for this project, we need these chemicals from India. We need a machinery from Germany. So we break it into various components, okay, and identify the tools and processes needed for the project to take place. Okay, so it's very important for you to go into planning. You can't skip initiation and go just straight into execution. Immediately you start this, you find out that there's something you could have identified during the planning stage which you didn't consider because you skipped that step. And also in the execution stage, this is where the project is being put into action or implemented, and deliverables are created. When we say deliverables, so deliverables are like very key components of a project. So let's say we dig the foundation. That is the first deliverable we seek to do. Okay, that is the first deliverable. Then we started laying the blocks, another deliverable. Then the plumber came to lay all the pipes. Then the electrician also came to do all the wiring connection. Then now the masons come again. So the different deliverables. Okay. Then now we go into the closure. So this is where all the efforts are being put together. So after the mason, the electrician, the contractor, everybody does their part. They put it all together to have a project. Then we conclude the project. Okay. Like I made mention, monitoring and controlling is not a life cycle, but an activity engaged on in every stage. So you do monitoring and evaluation in every stage of the project. Okay, so it's very important to know this as part of the life cycle of a project. I'll quickly run through some of these things. So one thing I said we will be looking at, or you understand over here, is project processes. Okay, these project processes, they are not really defined as something special, but it's a structure. So one thing you see over here is that there are different ways people embark on a project or people perform projects. So for instance, when I want to build a house, okay, so many people have actually built houses before. So it is not now that I'm about to find something new and do something that is like novel, okay, or experimental. At this point, I'm doing something that people do every day or on a regular basis. That is, they have to dig a foundation, lay blocks. So for projects like building a house, you need a defined process, okay, or you use the predictive process where you lay blocks before you call the electrician, before you call the plumber. These are like already known when you are creating or building a house. For instance, when Elon Musk was building the Tesla, there's an aspect of Tesla which is defined. Why do I say that? When you have the tires of a Tesla, everybody or every car company has a car tire. It's not something new that Elon Musk is going to do. Okay, or if he had done something different from what there is for car tires, that is where he would have used a different process. But car tires are very common, so he would just get the idea from what is already defined. Windscreens are already there. He also take it from there. But let's say now he's now trying to do something that is self-driving. That is where he will use the empirical process. Okay, experiment. He goes through a series of iterations. I test it to see if it is working. Fine. Just like Thomas Edison, when he was doing the light bulb, he went through the empirical process of actually experimenting 999 times before he got it right. So he went through a series of iteration. So that is the empirical process. And this is mostly used in research-based or in the science field. When you have a mathematician trying to prove a certain theory, he goes over and over, or a scientist trying to research on mosquitoes. They go over and over and do some experiment. Oh, this thing produced maybe 40% efficiency for killing mosquitoes. So we go again, we try again, and we now get to a 70%, like the COVID vaccine. They based the efficacy at, I think, 75% for the global standard. And so as a pharmaceutical company, I need to build my vaccine in a way that it gets to the 75% efficacy. Anything below it would not be efficient for fighting COVID. So I'll go through a series of process. The first attempt, maybe I get 40%. The second attempt, I get 60. Then I try again, I hit 80. I'm like, oh, I want to stop over there. I don't want to overkill. Some actually went ahead and did 90% efficacy. And those were like, oh, this one is very good, they're very efficient, because they took their time, experimented, and did it over and over. And they even tested it on lab rats, and some humans also volunteered in the beginning stages. So that is how the empirical process works. And building an installment, okay, let's say when you are building an installment or in the incremental process has to do with building an installment or delivering in bits. So this is the point where, let's say you build a university and you need a website for your university. The main thing that you will need for people who are now about to attend your university will be a homepage and an admission form. So you tell them, oh, I know we need a lot of components for my website, but I need the homepage and the admissions portal so that people can apply to my school. So they do the first part, which is the homepage. Then now they do the admissions form. Then now when they are done, they do the course allocation. Then they do the courses. You understand? So all of these things are built in installment, and they add together to make the project successful. Okay, so you can see some of these processes, like the defined process, being used in traditional waterfall projects, which is in more construction works. Some big industries also use the predictive flow, and some research companies use the experimental. Even most of the IT companies use some of these empirical process. The incremental as well, IT firms, research companies, they do things in bits so that when they are done, they can put it all together and have the project completed. Okay, so those are the processes when it comes to project. These are the main processes when it comes to executing a project. Okay, so one of the things every project manager must know is project management methodologies. Okay, it's very key to every project manager. So project management methodologies are the processes, guidelines, and best practices used in project management. Very key. So they are already defined by, so people have actually studied and brought out these methodologies. Okay, and due to that, people are learning it. People are getting certified in some of these methodologies. And so it's very key, you know, the project management methodologies. Okay, so we'll quickly move into that. So there are different types of methodologies. People use different types of methodologies when it comes to a project. We have the waterfall methodology. Okay, we have the agile methodology, and this is Scrum. But Scrum is a framework. It's a framework under agile. Kanban is also a framework under agile. Then we have the Lean. Lean is also a methodology. Okay, but it is mostly used by the manufacturing industries. They actually use it to reduce waste. So let's say if they realize that the cost of production is very high, they apply the Lean methodology to reduce cost or even time. Okay, to make things more focused. They focus on the key stuff. So the name Lean actually shows that they are trying to make the process very lean or cost very lean or like the efficiency very lean instead of like making it very huge. Okay, and we have the 6 Sigma. The main focus is to reduce defect. That is what people also use when they are embarking on a project. As a project manager, someone will ask, do I have to know all of these methodologies? No. You don't need to know all. You would need to know at least one or two, because, and I would advise, okay, based on my experience or my research, the very popular ones used nowadays is Waterfall and Agile. Agile even ranking as the very top methodology being used across globe, okay, the whole world. Agile is used very globally, and I think you understand why as we go on. I'll touch on Scrum. So Scrum is also a framework under Agile, which runs the project in sprints. And when we say sprint is a period where the engineers actually go ahead and run the project. And within a certain period, when they set 2 weeks that we want to do the foundation within 2 weeks, they come again, okay, they build the foundation of the house within 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, they meet again and say, okay, we've been able to build the house, the foundation. Then they meet, okay, now we'll focus on building the walls for the house. Then they focus on it. That one will take maybe this period. Then we go into a sprint, we plan and go into it. Then we improve. Okay. But it is mostly, Scrum was built for software or out of software. Okay. So mostly you find the software engineers actually using Scrum mostly. Then we can talk of Kanban. Over here is the picture over here. Okay. Is how Kanban is. Kanban deals with visual boards. So visual boards where you have a list of things that people have to do. So let's say the marketing team has to do a promotion. The IT team has to do a website. So immediately the IT team start working on the website, they move it to the in progress. Marketing team, they are doing their communication plan and all, and they move it to in progress. Then if the software, the IT guys say, oh, we are done with the software, we are ready to deploy, they move to the deployment. Then if everything, they test and everything is fine, then they move to approval. And the CEO, the operations manager, all of them come together and say, oh, it's fine, we approve it. Then finally it's moved to done. That is how Kanban works. Kanban gives the opportunity for everyone to see what is being done by the team. Okay, so the Agile frameworks actually works with like the iterative and incremental process. Okay, so Agile is a combination of the iterative and incremental process. It's a combination, or it's a hybrid process. Then we can talk of the waterfall. Okay, I would talk about waterfall and Agile on the next slide mostly. So let's just move on. So for the types of project management, I'll mainly focus on waterfall and Agile. Okay, so waterfall was formed from this idea where when water pours from like a heap or a hill, it goes all the way down. Just like a waterfall you can see over here. When you go to Boti waterfall or any waterfall here in Africa, the water comes from the top all the way down and never goes back up. That is how waterfall is. So waterfall is a process that comes in a very linear way. And so when you look at the differences between waterfall and Agile, waterfall works in a linear sequential model. That means we need to build a foundation before they build and lay the walls. So with waterfall, you can see that when we build a foundation, the roofing people cannot come and say that, oh, I want to lay my roof because before you finish your house. No, we have to do it in sequence before these people will come, and the last people will be the roofing people. And mostly that's how it is. The roofing people are usually the last people, if not the very last, but they are the last people who come, or the interior deco people will be the last people to come. Interior deco people cannot come and say, oh, I want to do the interior design before you come and finish the house. No, it moves in that order, okay? And due to that, there are little to no changes when it comes to the waterfall, okay? You see, waterfall did not go back. So let's say I want to build a 4-bedroom house, and they lay a foundation for a 4-bedroom house. And later I say I want to build a 5-bedroom house. They might have to destroy the whole foundation. So it makes room for little to no changes. Maybe the thing I can change is the position of the window. It was on the left side, I want to move it to the right. That is where they'll say, oh, then sir, we have to break the wall before we get the window done. That is how it is, little to zero changes, okay? Then the idea is already known. So like building a house, you already know that this is how my house will look like because the architect has already done the modeling and the designs for you to know how the house will look like. So most likely than not, your house will look like what they designed, that is in the sheet. It is only when your contractor is no good, I'm sorry to say, that is when you have your house looking like very different from what you planned for. Okay, so it is very predictable but slow. Slow because we move in that sequence. Okay, then I can say with the agile makes room for changes. So I can build this aspect of the project because I feel okay. So like let's say when you are building a software, the front end team can go ahead and do the designs if the UX designers are done, and the back end also can build their models, whether and choose the language they'll be using. So it moves in an installment and increment iterative way. So you don't with agile makes room for changes. You can make change at any time, like a software product. I feel like my color will be blue. Then tomorrow I come, I'm like, it should be navy blue, navy green. You see, I can make those kind of changes. And agile is mostly used for very complex projects or projects you don't know the end. Like when you're building a website, even though they tell you this is how it will be like, there are certain things you will face along the line there are certain things like the software language you are going to use. Sometimes there'll be an update. There's a security threat here and there that you have to do. So sometimes you don't know what you'll be facing when you come to like some of these kind of projects. And that is why agile is mostly used for projects that are very highly uncertain or very complex. Okay. And also used for for experimentation. So those in the labs, those doing research can use agile. Okay. So these are the types of these are the two main types, which is waterfall and agile. I'll finally give us a bonus by answering who a project manager is. A project manager is one responsible for planning, for execution, and organizing a project. They work in a team to ensure that everything is completed on time and within budget to the required standard. That is who a project manager is. Anything you do as a project manager, or anyhow the project goes, okay, the project manager will be blamed for the success or the failure of the project. When you go to a project-based company, when a project fails, they usually blame the project manager. They don't blame the engineers. They blame the project manager. Why? Because he is the one in charge of planning, organizing, and executing. It's not that you have to go and do some of the work, no. But you have to make sure that people are working or the people have the resources to do the work. The money that they need is also released to them. And everything is working in order. That is your work as a project manager. If money is not coming and things are not going on well, you can blame the project manager on the project. That is why on the national level, when you see some roads being done, one of the questions you will hear more often than not is, who is the project manager for this project? Like mostly they'll ask the project manager and the contractor. Okay, sometimes most times the contractors are usually the project manager on the scene because they bring together all the skills. It is the project manager who is held responsible for the success of a project because he does all of these things. Then you also ask, what skills do I need to become, or competencies do I need to become a project manager? One thing I'll say is you need a leadership skill. You need to know how to lead people because you'll be leading a lot of people. People will come to you every day. Okay? You need to know how to communicate to stakeholders that, Mr. Benjamin, your project is going to delay for 2 weeks because the roofing sheet company said that they have had shortage in their supplies and they are going to have some in the next week. So we are hoping to complete everything in 2 weeks and hand over the keys to you. You need to know how to communicate. Okay? You also need to have organizational skills. That means you have to put things in order. Like you need to know when to call the plumbers. You need to know when to call the electricians. You need to know when to get the masons back on the work. Okay, that is very important. You need team management. That, hey, you people work in this kind of way. You people do things like this. You need to know how to manage the team. Problem solving. More often than not, a project manager, you'll be asked so many things you don't even know about. You don't have to know everything, but you also need to put yourself in a position where you can solve problems. Okay, that means you need to learn. You need to learn. You need to learn. Okay, you need to have a good time management. Why? Because every project, like I made mention, has a schedule. And so time management is a key factor you need to have. Then cost management or budgeting. You don't need to necessarily have this skill, but it is also good because there are certain projects you might not have the idea on the costing. Like let's say if you become a project manager for a construction firm, you might not know how much it will cost to do the roofing. You might not know how much it will cost to do this, but you need the people. So you meet them. How much do you think it will cost? Then they'll say, oh, for the roofing, it will cost 40,000. Then you're like, okay, can you do it for 35,000? They say yes. Then now you say you come to Benjamin and say, oh, it will cost 45,000. I mean, you added a little because sometimes there are certain miscellaneous, okay, that comes in and out of the project. And project costing is also a different thing altogether. And once you go deeper into projects, you realize there are more components of projects you need to understand. Stakeholder engagement is very key as a key competence you need. You need to know who are your stakeholders. If you don't know who your stakeholders are, you will be there and somebody will come to you and tell you, the project you are doing is affecting me. So I've taken you to court. Because you didn't consider that person as a stakeholder, so you didn't inform him about the project. And so now this person feels like your project you're embarking on is affecting me. And so I take you to court, it delays your project, and now the building that you have to do for me now exceeds the time limit. Okay, so you need to identify your stakeholder and know how to engage them. Talk to them that, oh, we are doing this, and so the area will be noisy for a period of 4 hours. So please bear with us. So even if the person goes to report you, you've already alerted the authorities that this is what you'll be doing. And so you'll be making noise, and now they make it known to all the other stakeholders. You also need to understand the methodologies, the one we made mention of, Waterfall, Agile, some of these things, because when people come to you, they'll be testing your knowledge as a project manager, okay? And if you know some of these methodologies, it helps you deal with, you can tell them, oh, for this thing you are describing, I think Agile methodology will be the best. And another thing you need to have is adaptability. As a project manager, they can bring any project to you, unless maybe your company is like IT firm, which deals with software, then you know all the projects that will be coming will be IT projects. But maybe you work in an organization that is more diverse. You need to adapt, you need to learn, okay? Then one other skill you need is risk management. You need to be able to factor every risk that will take place on your project. And prioritization. As a project manager, things will come and sway you off. There are certain things that will come and will prove themselves as important, but you need to know what is the must have, the should have, and would have. Okay, you need to know all of this. You need to know what is a must and what you don't need to pay attention to. If not, anything will come and take your time away. Okay, so these are like the skills you need as a project manager. This is where I'll bring my presentation to an end. I have some resources available. I'll drop it in the chat so that we can actually use those resources. And so on this note, I would end the presentation for questions if there are any. I think we spent our time already. So we'll just leave 15 minutes room for questions.
Yes, exactly. So, okay, so I was asking how we can avoid certain pitfalls, especially with creating a project timeline. How can we ensure that we're creating like realistic deadlines that we can actually meet? How do we first of all measure to be able to set such timelines or realistic deadlines?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Curtis. Yeah, so when it comes to deadlines, okay, like I said, one of the skills every project manager needs is prioritization. Okay, you need to know what to prioritize. Every project comes with risk. Okay, so Curtis, let me answer this question in this way. So project comes with risk. You need to factor those risks so that when they come, you already have a solution for them. You also need to prioritize what are the key elements of your project. And so when you study project management and or like let's say in a software field, there's something called MVPs. Okay, that is the minimum viable product. So like, let's say your client comes to you, I want you to build a website for me. And looking at the website is very huge, where you need to address this issue. You need to address it from a point of view where you need to let them understand the overall timeline you will need to execute, or you need to execute. Maybe it will take us 6 months. And they come like, oh no, we need the product out by the first month. And you're like, okay, for the first month, this is what we'll be able to achieve. So you need to prioritize the key things. So then based on that, you sit with the client, you identify what is very key and important to them. Then you'll be able to outline the very key and important things for that project before you start. If not, you will start a project for a client who will tell you, I need it within 3 months. But within that 3 months, they come again and say, oh, things have changed. We need it within the first month. This is where you need to let them understand that this is the agreement. Okay, so as part of project, agreement and agreements are signed or contracts are signed. So you need to state all of that in the contract for them to understand that for this project, we need, you said you wanted it within, and it can be done within that 3 months, and you need to obey that time. Anything beyond that, we cannot achieve it all. So then we need to work, okay, so what are the important things you want within this first 3 months or this first month? Then they outline it to you, then you'll be able to work within that timeline. Okay? Because it's very important as a project manager to be able to communicate with your stakeholders. Because if not, you will end up overlapping the time. Most projects we have here in the country are always exceeding the time or budget, mainly because people tend to do things not in an organized way or in a very contractual way. People do not obey the contract or the agreement that has been set for the project. So it's very imperative that you need to sit down with them, let them understand everything. If they say no, somebody can do it within that first month, then obey them, tell them to go to that someone who can do it within 1 month for them. And don't go and take a project that you know for you to do a very quality, they want a quality software and they want it within 1 month. You know you can't build a quality software within 1 month. So you make it very clear to them, okay, when you are in the initiation stage, okay, or the planning stage where they are telling you we want it within 1 month. You tell them how feasible it is to do it within 1 month. It is not. Then you give them the understanding that you need to build certain deliverables, and this deliverable will take 2 weeks. This will take another 2 weeks. And so the 1 month you are saying it's not feasible. Okay, so you need to have that communication as a project manager and be very open to the clients. Okay, I don't know if I've addressed that question, but I think the key things you need is one, prioritization. Okay, as a project manager. So there are certain resources on prioritization. So there are different types of ways you can prioritize your things. There's the MOSCO. Okay, there's the MOSCO process, which has to do with must have, should have, and could have. So the must have are the very important things that you should have for a project. The should have are important, but not so important. And could have would be things that you can do away with. You understand? If you understand that, you'll be able to address some of these things. And also with your time, good time management, there are various techniques for also managing times and managing a project. Okay. So I hope I've addressed your question.
Very much. Thank you very much, Benjamin.
Yeah, Dr. Azuma.
Benjamin, thank you so much. We've learned a lot, like Katie said. My question might not be necessarily based on your presentation. I've been doing presentation myself, but I don't remember ever using the tool you used to highlight a pencil. So would you mind showing me where you pick it so that I don't have to go and waste my time since you're already here to show us? I don't need to go and Google it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Dr. Azuma. So when you are using the PowerPoint and you share your screen, there is at the lower part of your screen, there's a pen and there's a toggle for the left and right. Okay. So you can click on the pen or even laser to point certain areas of like to show that this is what you are talking about so that people can actually understand where you are on the project. You can also highlight certain things for your audience.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, exactly what I needed. Thank you.
Dr. Azuma, I think since you brought this one up, we'll be having another session, and we'll communicate with them or with the people that we on presentation skills. Some of these things will be also addressed later on our upcoming webinars. So thank you very much, Dr. Azuma. These are some of the things that we'll be doing for our audience going forward. We'll be doing presentation skills as well. Okay. Yeah, I think I have a hand up. Benjamin. My name.
Yes.
Ben.
Yeah, please, I have a question on your resources for project management. Between the two, which would be the better one to get started with project management if one is interested in it?
Okay. So I would advise everyone to start with, for project management specific, you need to start with project management with Coursera, but it's a Google product, or it's a project management with Google. Okay, but it is hosted on Coursera. Okay, but there's a trick to this. It's a paid course. The first area or the first modules are for free. Then the subsequent ones you might have to pay. And sometimes there are scholarships you can write to Coursera based on you need financial support. I think it's $49 to continue. So you write to them and they can give you a waiver for maybe to pay something very less. Okay. And this Pendo actually is more on product management. I know I've got product management and project management, so I'll just quickly give a little idea of the difference over here. In every project, we seek to create a product or we seek to create a value. And there are some industries that are product-based. So product-based industries are like software companies that have their own software. They term it as products. You can have the food manufacturing companies like Gino tomato paste is a product by Gino. They use products. So products are in line with projects. Okay, so let's say when they are making the Gino product, they go through a series of activities to get that product out. And when it is out, as a product manager, how would you make that product effective for your consumers or for the audience if it's a software, or the users? Let me use the right word, users if it's a software. So Pendo actually focuses on products, and this one actually focuses on project management. Okay, so I've dropped the links in the chat or in this chat, so you can bookmark them as and whenever you are ready. Go through them. It's very educative. I've gone through them, and I've also shared it with some of my team members, and they are enjoying it. So I think you will enjoy it too. Okay.
Right. Thank you very much.
So we'll end today's webinar. I would like to thank everyone for being here, for participating in this first webinar by Agredus Consult. If you don't know about Agredus, okay, okay, let me also speak about our sponsors. Okay, let me speak on our sponsors and our supporters. Okay, so we have our current resource center. Also, being a supporter for this webinar, we have the Bound Foundation. We also have Hidden Way Foundation, and finally, to Spatial Girls and Kids. All of these are very good corporations which we are working with at Agredus. You can see over here, strongly working at Agredus. And so, if you have any software needs, if you have any environmental or sustainable projects you are embarking on, and you need people to partner with or to work with, any communication project, Agredus is your guys. We are there for you, and we will be able to execute the project with some of these things we've discussed over here, and there will be no need for us to fight over some of these components that we've spoken about, like the resources, like the time. We wouldn't fight over it. We work and we communicate, like the every step we go through for the body. So I'll tell you, look no further, but look at the thing when it comes to some of these needs. Okay, so thank you all very much, and you guys are very good on me. I really enjoyed it. I hope you like it.